And we're kicking off with NXT as Ilja Dragunov showed up to celebrate his NXT title victory from No Mercy, and he was joined by someone else who won big last weekend, North American champion Trick Williams. The two men congratulated each other before Carmelo Hayes came out to tell Trick he always believed in him, but he had some doubts about Trick's impending rematch with Dominik Mysterio. Appearing to a chorus of boos, Dominik said that even as the champ, Trick was living in Hayes' shadow in a clear attempt to play mind games with his opponent. When Hayes offered to be in Trick's corner for the main event title match, confident that the Judgment Day would get involved, Williams turned him down, wanting to do it alone. Later in the show, Braun Breaker said he knows what it feels like to lose a title and a friend, and said it must bother Melo that everyone has stopped caring about him and are chanting Trick's name. Breaker tried to drive a wedge between the two friends, saying that Hayes should attack Williams to take his anger out, and gave his fellow former NXT champion plenty to think about. In another backstage segment though, Hayes revealed that he'll face Braun Breaker next week, and that he'd just been on the phone with the man who will be in his corner, John Cena. Melo spoke about Cena giving him advice after his title loss at No Mercy, and Cena's appearance on the Gold brand will have been a long time coming. Cena has never competed on NXT programming, though he did appear on the Gold brand over a decade ago as the guest on the Damien Sandow show during the May 3rd, 2013 taping. This was a dark segment, but WWE opted to release a clip of it on YouTube, and the segment itself saw Cena mock Sandow, as well as an unannounced appearance by Enzo Amore and Big Cass. The pair of certified Gs cut a promo on Sandow, though the segment was mainly to hype up Cena's WWE title defense against Ryback at Extreme Rules later that month. The last man standing match would see Cena retain the title via a draw, as both men were unable to answer the 10 count after going through the electronic wall on the stage. There'll be no Sandow or Ryback next week when Cena returns to be in the corner of Carmelo Hayes, but it'll be a monumental event as part of Cena's ongoing return to the company. More from NXT as the show's main event saw a No Mercy rematch for the North American title mere days after Dominik Mysterio lost the gold to Trick Williams. On Raw, the returning Rhea Ripley made it clear that Dominik had to win the gold back or else, and while he went it alone at No Mercy, that wasn't the case for the rematch. Mysterio was flanked by Rhea Ripley, and it was only a matter of time before Finn Balor and Damian Priest came out to ringside, momentarily distracting Williams in the ring. While the bout was underway, Ripley tossed her Women's World Championship belt to Dirty Dom so he could hit Trick with it, but he only got a 2 count. Later into the match, Dominik went for the frog splash, only for Williams to get his knees up at the last second, and followed up with a jumping knee for good measure. Judgment Day affiliate JD McDonough then got involved, only to be hit with a jumping knee of his own, but it was clear that the Judgment Day's sheer numbers were starting to overwhelm the champ. When Damian Priest gave Dominik Mysterio his Money in the Bank briefcase to use as a weapon, this was spotted by the ref, but it gave Finn Balor time to blast Trick in the face with his tag title belt. With the champion down, Mysterio hit Williams with a frog splash to win the match and reclaim the North American title. After a roller coaster win at No Mercy, it feels wrong to move on from Williams this fast, as the Judgment Day has plenty going on at the moment and don't need the North American title. If anything, not having Mysterio win would have started a new story between himself and Rhea, pitting the two at odds after always having been on the same page in the past. Dominik could have gone after the US title held by his father or backed up Balor and Priest in tag action, and whatever the plan is, WWE should keep Trick hot, as he may be the most over wrestler in NXT today. After the main event, Paul Heyman appeared on the screen and spoke about John Cena and his role next week as the cornerman for Carmelo Hayes. Heyman then revealed that Braun Breaker won't be going it alone, as Heyman will be in the second-generation wrestler's corner, making Breaker a Paul Heyman guy for the night. If Cena and Heyman aren't enough, it was revealed that Cody Rhodes will be making a major announcement during next week's NXT in his first appearance for NXT since his 2022 return. NXT is certainly not solely a developmental brand as it once was, but slowly is evolving into a third brand. But why is next week's episode going to be so star-studded? Well, it's because of a scheduling change, which means that AEW Dynamite will be happening on Tuesday rather than Wednesday, putting the two shows head-to-head once more. That's why the likes of Cena, Rhodes, Heyman, and Asuka have all been announced in advance, and on Twitter, Bully Ray said that it's clear that there's a chess match going on between the two companies. The October 10th Dynamite will be a special Title Tuesday show. though the biggest match of the night won't feature championship gold, as Adam Copeland will make his in-ring debut for AEW against Luchasaurus. Shawn Michaels is pulling out all the stops to make sure his show emerges as the winner in the ratings collision with Tony Khan's flagship show, which will also happen on Khan's birthday. The AEW president will be hoping for a very special birthday present, that being Dynamite beating NXT in the ratings, but WWE's Gold brand will not make things easy for those in AEW. From the moment AEW fired CM Punk, rumors of a WWE return surfaced, and while names like Kevin Nash have buried the idea, some fans are seeing what they perceive as signs of a comeback. On this week's Raw, Seth Rollins and Michael Cole had an in-ring segment in which Cole spoke to Rollins about names he's been known by, saying, "How about manipulator, puppeteer at times, but it seems that this time around you're actually the puppet." This will have been an innocuous line to many, but wrestling historians perked up, with many saying it was a bit too similar to a CM Punk promo in ROH from years ago. At the time, Punk said, "This is my stage, this is my theater. You're my puppets, and I pull those marionette strings, and I use your emotions and I toy with them because honestly, I get off on it." Fans were quick to point out the similarities between the two promos, with some seeing it as a tease of Punk's return, but what exactly is happening with this promo? A member of WWE Creative told Ringside News that Seth Rollins is one of many people here who don't like CM Punk, and if he did want to reference Punk, he most likely got it approved by Triple H and kept it out of the script. If anyone is going to remember a CM Punk promo from a decade or two ago, it's Seth Rollins, who had a great ROH run as Tyler Black before WWE. It's worth noting that Seth called himself the best in the world during last week's Raw, a moniker Punk has used before, and to some, more proof of the Chicago-made wrestler's comeback. On the pre-NXT No Mercy media call, Shawn Michaels said that Punk would be welcomed in NXT, though rehiring him isn't his call, and HBK admitted that his statement might get him in trouble. Punk has said he is free until November, the same month that just so happens will host Survivor Series in Chicago. And will he return on that night? And is WWE already sowing the seeds on TV? Over to Raw now, as this week's show went off the air with Johnny Gargano returning to TV to help his friend Tommaso Ciampa, officially reuniting DIY in the process. Raw went off the air with the friend standing tall after hitting a double super kick on Giovanni Vinci, and after the show, the two shared a warm embrace as fans cheered them on. PW Insider reports that Johnny Gargano's WWE Raw return was a late decision, and they actually locked those down over the weekend, and Gargano was hidden once he arrived in the building. DIY's reunion had been rumored since before SummerSlam, but only now has WWE pulled the trigger on the idea, and with the pair being faces, perhaps a title opportunity against the Judgment Day is in the works. After a brutal Extreme Rules match at No Mercy and not being cleared to wrestle on Raw, the WWE Universe went into this week's NXT wondering what would be in store for Becky Lynch. On the show, Lynch did appear, but her promo made it clear she's still not cleared to compete, but the NXT Women's Champion put over Tiffany Stratton as an opponent who gave it her all. Looking ahead, Lynch focused on NXT Halloween Havoc, which this year will be a two-night show over 2 weeks, and it wasn't long before challengers came out of the woodwork. Lyra Valkyria was the first to step up, followed by a returning Indi Hartwell and Roxanne Perez, setting up a triple threat match to determine the #1 contender. The segment ran a bit too long, but served its purpose of highlighting new challengers, and Lynch's regular involvement with NXT demonstrates her commitment to elevating the women's division. We do have to question the response of the NXT fans though, who gave Valkyria what chance and booed Roxanne Perez in an odd move for a fanbase that should be trying to build future stars. As for the match, the triple threat was an entertaining affair, helped for the fans at home by the charismatic Lynch on commentary, who said she wanted to fight all 3 women. The match had a series of entertaining sequences, such as Perez rolling into a leg sweep position on Hartwell, only for both to be caught with a missile dropkick by Valkyria. The Prodigy sent the Valkyrie to the floor with a Frankensteiner, but Indie Wrestling took her down with a low forearm. We have to admit it was exciting to see Hartwell work a lengthy match again with top talent in NXT, as she's been given absolutely nothing since being moved to the main roster. It seemed like Perez had things won after catching Indi Hartwell with pop rocks before Kiana James pulled the Prodigy out of the ring. This infraction cost James, who was laid out by Lynch, and in the chaos, Lyra Valkyria would capitalize by hitting a diving splash on Hartwell to get the win. It feels like Hartwell was just brought in to take the pin, which is a shame, as though Lynch vs. Valkyria is the biggest match of the three options. It's a story that could have been told any time. As for Kiana James's involvement, she explained that she wants to be a bigger star than Perez, and has brought in one of WWE's biggest female stars, Asuka, to face Perez next week. Perez and James will continue their feud that will likely go into Deadline in December, where both can compete in the Iron Survivor Challenge. After the match, Tegan Nox appeared to remind Lynch of their upcoming title match, which is scheduled to take place on next week's Raw. With two challengers, Lynch's days with the title may be numbered, and when BWE was asked about plans for the man, they said it'll be not too long before she loses the NXT Women's title. As to whether it'll be Nox, Valkyria, or someone else who takes the gold from Lynch, that remains to be seen, but no matter how much longer her reign lasts, Lynch is focused on elevating the women's division. More from NXT now as Butch continued his return to the gold brand and looked unstoppable working alongside Tyler Bate, forming a pairing that Mark Coffey and Wolfgang couldn't match up to. The former British strong-style allies sealed the win with an assisted double underhook suplex to Coffey, but were attacked post-match by Joe Coffey, who was aided by the rest of Gallus. Ridge Holland arrived to even the odds and send Gallus running after what was a good, but not great match between the four men who know each other well. The match felt shorter than it was, but it never quite reached its peak over 10 minutes, though it was fun to see British Strong Style reunited. Bate would be a perfect addition to the Brawling Brutes if they need a fourth member, and if WWE deem him ready for the main roster, and Holland in NXT will only help him earn more TV time. Gallus, on the other hand, are going to struggle to stay relevant if they keep on losing, and WWE can give them all the hype they want, but it means little when they're constantly looking up at the lights. NXT saw Gigi Dolin pick up a win over Blair Davenport with a roll-up, perhaps teasing a rematch with a more clean finish, while Via Hale and JC Jane defeated Elektra Lopez and Lola Vice. In the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, Kalani Jordan beat Izzy Dame to move on to the semifinals, and even without Dana Brooke, Jordan remains over with fans and a clear favorite to win the whole thing. So that was this week's NXT, a decidedly ordinary affair after the gold brand over-delivered with last weekend's No Mercy. With big names like Becky Lynch and Tiffany Stratton out of action, NXT had a chance to highlight other stars, but it was one of the lightest weeks in terms of overall roster representation. With teases of main roster talent as well as the Judgment Day's involvement this week, this felt more like an episode of Raw or SmackDown, but we can hardly blame WWE for this. NXT will be in a right fight next week when they go head-to-head with Dynamite, and rather than establish big matches for NXT talent, the brand is relying on outside names from Raw and SmackDown to hook a particular audience. This may win the week, but it is not the sustainable focus that has made NXT a better product as of late, and the goal should still be to highlight the bevy of rising stars in WWE's developmental program. On the positive side, NXT was densely packed with female talent who made up a good half of the show, and while Becky Lynch still stands tall, NXT is making a concerted effort to highlight her many challengers. The drama between Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams is also exciting, and the pair remain to be a charismatic act on the roster, and we expect that to continue, whether as allies or as enemies. Last week, WWE confirmed the signing of Jade Cargill, and though she only recently became a superstar, fans could be seeing her very soon. PW Insider reports that there are talks about Cargill making her WWE TV debut at this weekend's Fastlane, news that has had the WWE Universe talking. On Twitter, fans expressed their excitement over Cargill's WWE debut being perhaps mere days away, with one calling it a ballsy move to have the ex-AEW star skip NXT entirely. Speaking of brands, PW Insider added that Cargill is expected to be on the Raw brand going forward, and unsurprisingly is expected to be featured prominently after she makes it to the Red Show. During an interview with 100.7 The Bay, Bobby Lashley spoke favorably about Cargill, saying her signing proves that WWE is the next level, and said she'd fit in well with his group. That looks unlikely now, considering that Lashley and the Street Profits are on SmackDown, but what could WWE have planned for the former TBS champion? Not only will Cargill appear at Fastlane, but there has been talks backstage of her having some kind of face-off with Rhea Ripley, who isn't booked for a match at the show, but is expected to appear. With Finn Balor and Damian Priest set for a title match, expect Ripley to have a promo, one that'll be interrupted by Cargill, teasing an epic showdown when Cargill is ready to wrestle. In the days running up to last week's Raw, Mustafa Ali vowed he would show up during the NXT North American title match between Dragon Lee and Dominik Mysterio. That, of course, didn't happen as Ali was released prior to that episode of Raw, but WWE did have plans for Ali right before his contract was ended. Fightful Select reports that Ali would have appeared on Raw and that his involvement would set up a triple threat match between Mysterio, Ali, and Lee at No Mercy, and in that match, Ali would have won the North American title. Those plans had to be scrapped due to Ali's release, and on the pre-No Mercy conference call, Shawn Michaels was asked about his release. He said, "I found out right before he did. I'll say this, I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't take us by surprise. That's one thing I'm learning here, is that main roster and NXT are totally separate rosters. I think the world of Mustafa, he had a great working relationship with him in the time that he was here. I'll miss him. That's what we do here in NXT, we adjust." Michaels has been very open about matters as of late, including Mustafa Ali and CM Punk, and sources have indicated that this may have caused a rift between him and Triple H. At this stage, these claims should be treated as a rumor and not hard fact, but if this is the case, hopefully the game and HBK can talk things out and get back to being friends who are helping WWE. It's not just Mustafa Ali who has been on the receiving end of changed plans, as an interview segment that was supposed to take place on Raw didn't make the broadcast. Instead, the interview that saw Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens discuss Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes getting a tag title match at Fastlane was shared on social media, and there's no word as to why this change of plans took place. With her enthusiastic announcements, Samantha Irvin has won over fans with her skills on the mic, but Irvin is only human, and like anyone, is capable of making mistakes. Speaking on Insight with Chris Van Vliet, Irvin recalled one time getting LA Knight's hometown wrong, and Knight going off on her backstage over the incident. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed and Knight is now billed from the more memorable Los Angeles, and this is a rare mistake that Irvin said she's definitely learned from. It's been 94 days since Damian Priest unhooked the Money in the Bank briefcase in London, and while he's teased cashing in since then, the Archer of Infamy has yet to have his title match. It appears that Priest's cash-in won't be happening just yet, as according to BWE, it'll be teased heavily in December, and it seems we'll have to wait until next year to see Priest have his world title match. Unlike WWE, AEW president Tony Khan has tried to avoid making cuts to his roster, and has instead preferred to let contracts expire naturally and opts not to re-sign people. In a recent interview, Khan vowed to never succumb to mass layoffs, not even if he gets punched in the face, and during his Click This podcast, Kevin Nash questioned Khan's mentality. My question would be to that is, do you have f***ing 100 people in your staff? I mean, if he cut 100 people, would he have anybody on his staff? I'm just saying it's very, very easy, to run a hot dog stand, and they f***ing shut down 4 franchise restaurants at Burger King, and you're like, well, we'd never do that because we only have this hot dog stand. Burger King is larger and publicly traded. There's a lot of intangibles. It's the kind of person Tony is. He's not sniping. He's not saying that to be malicious. He's just saying that because he's a kind human being, and I know he loves this industry, but it's just completely different. While some believe AEW has too many names on its roster, leading to many going underused, Khan doesn't plan on cutting talent from their contracts early, showing how different he is to those in Stamford. Prior to his debut at AEW Wrestle Dream, Adam Copeland had spoken at length about the next chapter in wrestling likely being his last, and when speaking to CBS, Copeland confirmed that this will be the case. He said, "I think that's a very safe thing to say because I know how much work it's going to take to be able to pull it off. I know that. I'm not in any way trying to fool myself into thinking I'm just going to trot through this whole thing." In the interview, Copeland also discussed his thought process about leaving WWE for AEW, saying that his daughters encouraged him to go be with Uncle Jay, aka Christian Cage, as they knew it'd make him happy. Copeland signed his AEW contract on September 21st after his WWE deal expired, and while that day saw WWE release a ton of names from their contract, the biggest departure wouldn't be known about until Wrestle Dream. And we're ending with Adam Copeland, as the multi-time WWE champion made his AEW debut just weeks after CM Punk's controversial exit. So far, no one has said whether the two incidents are related. WWE Hall of Famer Booker T, speaking on his Hall of Fame podcast, laid out a unique but seemingly compelling railway theory to explain how the two incidents are related. He described the two incidents as follows. He said, "A promoter told me a long time ago, you might remember it very well, one monkey don't stop no show. And that's what this is all about. You know, out with one, we'll bring in another one. There's not one guy who's ever held this up. You know, from the train, you know, steel roller, they take that loose link out, boom, they get rid of it, they replace it, let's roll boys, let's get to the next station. The world of wrestling has had some very controversial departures and additions over the years, and it's not uncommon for professional wrestlers to leave a franchise for greener pastures. However, Punk's recent departure was highly controversial and caused ripples within AEW. Adam Copeland joining AEW will be a positive for Tony Khan's AEW. The Jacksonville-based company was in need of a major re-signing following the very public exit of Punk and Jade Cargill. Despite all that happened with CM Punk lately, Impact Wrestling and their talent are still interested in inviting Punk. While speaking with What Culture, Impact Wrestling star Josh Alexander was asked if CM Punk would be welcomed into an Impact locker room. Alexander made it clear that Punk would be welcomed with open arms. What do you think? Should Punk join Impact or retire? Sound off in the comments below.